Hi everyone, welcome. I think I actually didn't press the live button. So here we are once again with Christina. Thank you very much for watching this video. I'm so excited. This is the final Lunch and Learn of the year. Christina, thank you very much for being here. Love the tree behind you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is it that way? That way.
That way, love it. Love it,
So
love it.
good to be here.
I'm very happy. We're going to have a very interesting, important conversation, I dare to say. I think it's a very key topic. Before we do so, for anyone who hasn't come in those sessions before, make yourself comfortable, grab whatever you need to take notes, but also share any questions that you might have, either live or even as you're watching the replay. I've got an eye on the chat, so more than happy to pick it up as we go right now, but also post-session. On that note, Christina, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much. It's so good to be here. I'm so
How are
grateful
you?
we met.
I know, me too. Full disclosure, we've met as part of the LinkedIn Content Accelerator program, and we've met face-to-face literally a week ago now.
That's right.
So Christina's kindly accepted to come here. It's fair to say that you are a career and a leadership coach, and one of the topics that you're also yourself very passionate about is obviously making sure that you are working with people, you're working with women to empower them to build a career they're happy with, to the extent of talking about topics such as prioritization. So definitely when you reached out in terms of like topics that we could cover together, I thought this is a very interesting one, especially to finish the year. I'm staring at the camera, I'm staring at you. You might be feeling like you're running around like a headless chicken. It's really complicated to prioritize yourself. So from your experience, Christina, why do you think we have such a hard time to prioritize ourselves? And obviously I'm including myself in it.
I'm including myself as well. I think, when we first asked that question, the easy answer might be, well, we don't have time. It's busy. We're running all the time on the treadmill. There's no time for prioritizing ourselves. But often, if we dig a little bit deeper, it's often a mindset issue. It's around the sort of beliefs that we have around things like self-care and what prioritizing ourselves actually means, what work-life balance actually means, and they are stories that we have been passed on from our parents, our carers, our teachers, the experiences we have had in our lives, and even messages from society, obviously, as we kind of grew up, such as productivity is a measure of our success, for instance. So it's very hard to then think, oh, actually, should I really self-prioritize myself in this context? And I think there's some myth busting that we need to do.
Let's do this.
In terms of what things like self-care and work-life balance means. So if you think that's useful, I have a few thoughts on that. The first one would be that self-care is selfish. A lot of people say that. Oh no, I can't put my needs first. I can't do self-care because it's selfish. We were raised to put other people's needs before our own, and it just doesn't feel right in some way to kind of put ourselves first. And I'm definitely include myself in this. And
I was about to say, sorry for interrupting, but you are a mom yourself, right? So I feel like, especially when you have a family that in life in general, myself, I find it hard to prioritize myself because of selfishness. But even when you've got family and kids to look after, right? It's even harder, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And we devalue and sort of deprioritize ourselves so much in motherhood because obviously the children come first. And I think that definitely has an impact on self-worth and on self-esteem, on confidence, on all of those things. So for me, the most useful phrase I have found up to this point is to replace me first, which is, prioritizing my needs, with me now.
Nice.
And to really say, actually, I'm self-aware enough and I'm self-compassionate enough to prioritize my needs in this moment. It's not about me being first all the time. It's about me now in this moment meeting this need that I've identified because I'm self-aware enough to do so. And that sits better with me somehow.
Yeah, I love it. For anyone who is listening to this, right, I feel like this tiny change can make all of the difference, right? Because like you said, it's moving away from the whole like, oh my god, I'm selfish, I'm taking some time for myself. But it's just like, you know what, right now it's just the right time for me to look after myself, whether it's reading that book, just being by myself, doing or taking that bath, or doing that one thing I've been putting on the side, whatever it is. I think that's a fantastic one. Love that.
Okay.
I know we also have some additional tips to share, so we got some more to save at the end. Bang on the first 5 minutes. That's very, very nice. I feel like I want to have a Mina poster behind me now. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah, I've got a couple of more myths. So, as I said, self-care is selfish. Self-care is indulgent. We're being a bit self-indulgent when we think about prioritizing our needs, when we think about self-care. And I think that's a lot to do with the fact that many of us see self-care as self-indulgent, as, taking trips to the spa or bubble baths or, all of those things that feel good in the moment. But actually, self-care is about meeting your physical, mental, emotional, spiritual needs and well-being. So in that context, actually, sometimes self-care doesn't always feel good in the moment, but we know that it is right, to do it. I'm thinking about I don't know, allowing ourselves to feel all our feelings, for instance. It's not comfortable, but we have to go through that process because we know that that will be good for our mental health, right? Or, going for a run, even if it's pouring down with rain. We don't like it. It's not pleasant, but we know that that's good and we'll feel good after we've done it. I don't know, going to the hygienist. I hate going to the hygienist, but I go because it's part of my self-care. And the other day I wrote a post about how, for me, self-care is taking an hour in the morning after I've, sent my kids to school to ground myself and to, be well enough to be with my clients, because mornings are very hectic in our house. I've got 2 neurodivergent children. Getting them ready and out of the house is a process. And so I need that time to really be well enough to move into my my work and my day of work and be with my clients fully present. So that's a form of care for me. Things like quitting jobs and toxic environments and toxic relationships. That is a form of prioritizing ourselves and saying, actually, my self-worth comes first, and my well-being and my mental health comes before any job and any relationship.
I feel like a form of self-care sometimes is about saying no, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Like I think it's
going to say, boundaries, saying no to things. All this is just so important. And I think, coaching is a form of self-care. I'm actually prioritizing my goals, my wishes, my needs, what I want to achieve, and I'm going to invest in a coach. It's a form of self-care. So it's really understanding that actually self-care is about giving ourselves what is good for us, not just what feels good in the moment. It's not a self-indulgence. It's really essential to, for our well-being.
I love it. Amazing. Any other myth that you want to demystify?
Yes, the other one is feeling guilt about self-care and about prioritizing our needs. So I think we have a very achievement-based definition of success, and when we don't achieve, the outcome that we've set to achieve, or the outcome takes longer to achieve, then we tend to, work harder and for longer. So we go towards work and away from prioritizing, our self-care needs. We work harder and longer. So really, it's this sense that actually we're not worthy of self-care if we haven't achieved the outcome. That sense of kind of productivity always being tied into our success. And if we haven't been productive, we're not worthy of self-care and of prioritizing our needs. So there's a strong element of guilt there.
Yeah, I think you're spot on this third and final one. It's obviously something I've been talking a lot as well about on social media, but even with my clients recently. With this time of the year, we see wrapping up a year and then coming up for a new one. I've encouraged a lot of my clients to just take a time to reflect. And I feel like, to build on what you were sharing, with 2023 just being around the corner, for anyone again listening in, think about what a successful life, a successful career looks like for you in 2023, and not necessarily in the context of whatever you would have achieved, but also how would you feel in 2023, a way that actually is a feeling that you're happy with, as in you're proud of yourself for feeling this way. Like you were saying, like moving away from tangible, practical things that you own and things that you actually sort of giving your permission to experience or to feel or whatever it is. Like, I feel like this is definitely something that we need to talk more about. Like you were saying, to move away from that culture of a successful life, a successful career is to earn that amount of money, have certain number of kids or certain house or buying property, whatever it is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot about, doing versus being here. So making doing the sole measure of our success is not very healthy. It's kind of thinking about actually how does my doing support my being and my well-being, and therefore making sure that there's that balance between we do, but we need to do in a way that supports our being and our well-being.
Love that. All right, so I think the other thing I was keen to dive into with you is that sometimes we don't actually even realize that we're not prioritizing ourselves. Sorry, this is my French accent, so it's hard to say. But point is, sometimes we just don't even know, and we are literally abandoning ourselves. Like, how do we actually come up to realize that this is actually what's happening? Like, do you have any tips, any experience that you want to share on the topic to help bring that awareness?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, and it's something that comes up with my clients a lot. It's kind of, how do I become aware? How do I check in that that's what's happening? And I think I found two questions that are useful. Is one of them is if no one was watching, then would I prioritize myself in this particular aspect, right? Or would I meet this particular need as they arise? Kind of really ask that question. If no one was watching, because really that means that you're removing any sort of influence from others over your decisions by asking, if no one was watching, would I do it? Would I meet my need? Would I prioritize myself? So it just helps us to acknowledge how we really feel, if no one was there to kind of see it. Because often we are so, we feel the pressure from other people, as I said, from society, from family. And so that's one. And then the other one is, what emotion is driving my, my decision to not meet that need, to not prioritize myself.
Yeah.
Again, often coming back to the myths, it's, is it that I think that, I feel guilty if I prioritize myself? Is it guilt? Is it fear? Is it shame? If it's a negative emotion, it's quite likely that actually there is self-abandonment at play there. And that's sort of driving our decision to not meet our needs because we feel shame, or we feel fear, or we feel guilt.
Yeah,
I think these two questions can be quite useful. It's, if no one was watching, would I meet my need, or would I prioritize myself? And and what emotion is driving my decision to not, meet my need, not prioritize myself.
That's very interesting. I mean, I was just thinking, obviously, listening to what you shared here, if I were to think about that myself, like if nobody was watching, what would it look like, or would I do things differently? And if you think about it, I don't know what's been your experience, but being part of the LinkedIn Content Accelerator program, for example, I knew that a lot of people were watching additionally because I committed, for example, to share more, committed to these sessions that we're having today. And I feel that it has pushed me in a fantastic way. I mean, I'm very, very happy I went through. So I feel like there is that piece of like accountability for knowing that other people are watching, as in is a positive thing. But like you said, sometimes you don't even realize it. It could actually play against you. In my case, obviously, the experience with the program is 100% positive. But I know that, for example, around like week 5, I was starting to feel a bit more tired. So I thought, you know what? If I literally asked this question to myself, if I were not part of this program, what would I do? And I realized that, like you were saying, I just needed to make sure that I had additional time for myself first thing in the morning, before going through my day, going through my coaching client calls, but also going online, for example, on LinkedIn. And I feel like it's a very, very good practical thing that anyone can apply to themselves, removing that filter of who is on the other side looking at what I'm doing or what I think actually other people are looking at. Because also sometimes we think other people are watching, they absolutely are not. I mean, I don't know your thoughts on that, right? But there is also this like layer that just come on top and actually
nobody has time to focus on us.
right? Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, so I was thinking in terms of kind of tips, obviously, and you've just mentioned one, which made me think about actually, you know, just being more intentional about checking in with ourselves and asking ourselves, actually, how do I feel? What do I need in this moment? And meeting that need. We just don't tend to ask that question. And, you know, I'm neurodivergent. So for me, sometimes it's even more difficult to just be aware of, you know, the needs that my body is kind of communicating, trying to communicate. So, you know, I can go through periods of mini burnout because of that, because I don't pay attention enough. So, you know, I've got much better at that over the last kind of 2 or 3 years. But I did burn out about 3 years ago badly because I just wasn't doing exactly that. I wasn't paying attention to my needs. I wasn't checking in with myself. I wasn't asking myself, actually, what do I need in this moment? And you know, just that sheer pause, if we can take that regularly, and if we can make it a healthy habit to take the pause, you know, every day and every week, to really check in with ourselves and to check how we're feeling, it can make a massive difference to to how we, you know, meet our needs and how to our well-being, basically.
Nice. Yeah, and to build on that, for anyone again who's listening in, don't feel like you've got to wake up and be like, okay, this is me now for like 2 hours, right? Wherever you are on your journey of priority, see, French accent again, putting yourself first, wherever you are on that journey, think about where does it feel comfortable as a first place to start. Maybe you'll start with like an hour a week, or you just block this time. You don't know yet what's going to happen, but you block this time. And then from there, you start building sort of like a routine, a schedule that you then move on to like a daily, even 15 minutes, whatever it is. But wherever you are, just based on what you were sharing, Christina, just think about where is realistic to go next when it comes to starting to put myself first now, if I can put it in the two combined, because I know we said we're moving away from first and we're taking about the now. But also, like, when you've got, I don't know, in your day, for example, a meeting that got cancelled or something, rather than just go head down into, okay, cool, I can do this and that, just take a minute, pause and think, oh, wow, I've got this time back. Is there anything I want to do for myself right now, to use your hashtag me now, for example?
Yeah. And sometimes it can be about, you know, what I learn, you know, what are the kind of messages that I'm taking away from the day, for instance. You know, I always talk with my clients about having this little check-in at the end of the day, and ask these questions. What have I learned? What went well today?
Nice.
What went well today? Yes. What could have gone better? Right? So not what went badly, what could have gone better? How am I feeling? And what have I learned from these 3 questions? Right?
Love that.
What have I learned from what went well? What have I learned from what could have gone better? And what am I learning from how I'm feeling? Right? What can I do? What do I need to change? Even if we just have that, you know, 5-minute check-in with ourselves at the end of the day, it means that we are just more intentional about our days, and you know, we get to be more present and understand what's happening to us. And I think it can be so valuable, especially if you're, you know, a leader, you're kind of trying to juggle life and work, and, you know, don't even get me into the work-life balance thing, because that's another myth. But, you know, I don't like the term work-life balance. So
me neither. 100%. We can talk about that for a minute. I don't think there is such thing. It's like, it's you're living both your life and your career, and this is what's happening, right?
Definitely. And I think, you know, just that idea of kind of having to turn one on and turn one off because it's work and it's life, just isn't, especially after a pandemic, and, you know, after our lives and works are really blended. It's actually an integration. It's all life, you know, it's work is part of life, but so is parenting, and so is, you know, self-care, and so is, you know, our hobbies and volunteering. So I think we're, you know, giving work too much importance because of the sheer amount of time that we spend at work. But that then makes us put work in that kind of scarcity relationship with life, where you can never quite make that balance work. So if then we just kind of forget about all the other things and all the other elements that are part of our lives. So I think saying that we just integrate work and all the other aspects of ourselves into our life, it just feels like a healthier way of looking at it.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
So we digress slightly.
No, that's all right.
We were
Carry
talking
on.
about tips to, kind of how to
Yes.
prioritize ourselves. And we mentioned that the idea of kind of being more intentional and of checking in with ourselves.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked at the beginning about me now. So how can I create more me now moments? What are those? How can I diarize them? That's the other thing that often happens. We'll say, oh yes, I'll make sure I'll do that this week. Have you put it in your diary? Is it going to happen then if you haven't? Much more likely, obviously, if we have actually decided this is the day when I'm doing it at this time. Maybe even have a contingency plan for when, if something goes wrong and it doesn't happen. If it's not in the diary, it's unlikely that it will happen. Or we put it on a to-do list at the bottom, and then of course it gets dropped all the time. And we never get to it.
Yeah, and from experience, you need to put it first, as in try as much as you can to not accept meetings first thing in the morning, even if it's with your manager or your team. Like, try to see if you can have some time for yourself at the beginning of the day, because from experience, this is where you've got the most highly chances to make that happen. Like, either first thing in the morning, or like first thing of the working day, for example, or like you were saying, at night when, for example, the kids are into bed, if you're a mom, and you've got that 5 minutes journaling, which I love what you shared, because mine is just right here. You can't see it, but mine is just right here. This is literally what I do. So I would agree with that as well.
Yeah. And then, that idea of kind of don't always be on. We have this tendency of just not being able to switch off. And I think it's that makes us miss cues about our needs. It kind of, we're not paying attention, as I said, that's why we burn out. We need to get more present and kind of really be in touch with how we feel, the thoughts that, we're noticing, really pay attention to those. What kind of thoughts are they? Are they helpful? Are they not helpful? What can we do about that? Check in with ourselves, I mentioned. And even I was thinking, and this resonated strongly with me, actually, what kind of legacy am I leaving to my children if they see me not prioritizing myself, not meeting my needs, not, looking after myself? Is that what I want them to then do? Do I want to role model self-abandonment to them, or do I want to role model self-care and self-prioritization to them? And that, for me, is quite motivating, because, of course, I wouldn't want to role model self-abandonment to them. So maybe that helps.
Yeah, that's a good one. And in terms of the final minutes we've got left, I loved all of the tips that you've shared. I was wondering if you had any tips when it comes to sort of what today is about, as in this is how we've talked about it online, the guilt tripping side of things, like once you're like on that, so, oh my God, like I really feel guilty. I love what you shared about moving from me first to me now, for example. That's a good one. Do you have any additional tips? Because I know, for example, a lot of my clients, once you're in that cycle of not prioritizing yourself, it's really hard to break it down, right? So any additional tips that you've got, especially when you're like on that heavy part of like, it's really hard to see what's on the other side? Because I feel like, actually, sorry for building on that, I feel like there is another myth, which is self-care means you've got to drop everything and you've got to spend like a half day. Like it has to be like a luxury, lavish, whatever thing. But actually, it can be just bits and bobs. But anyway, very, very long question I just asked. Hopefully this makes sense, and I'll give the floor back to you.
Yeah, no, you're so right. I mean, I was thinking that back in June, I took a solo break for myself, and I went to Brighton for 3 days just to rest, just to, be by myself. And I posted about it on LinkedIn, and it had such engagement, that post. And so many women came and said, oh my God, I want to do this. I need to do this for myself. I never prioritize my needs. I really should go on a solo break. And while that's wonderful, and I was so glad that, a lot of women then said, oh, I then they messaged me and said, I went on my solo break, which is amazing. But self-care isn't really just a one-off thing. And it's important to kind of understand that it isn't a one-off thing, and it isn't a, as I said, an all, bells and whistles thing either. It's really about those, little moments that we can create to create the me now moments. While of course, having those kind of solo breaks as well, and thinking more intentionally. That's where intention comes in, to think about actually, when I look at my entire year, how have I done in terms of prioritizing my needs? Having a bit of an assessment of 2022 and thinking, what would I change? What would I do differently? What would I do more of or less of in 2023 as a result of what I've learned from this year? But really thinking about creating sustainable practices and sustainable habits rather than one-offs or these completely amazing experiences. Because as I said, self-care is not just about that. It's really about doing what is good for ourselves, not just what feels good in the moment.
Oh, love it. Are you going to take an additional solo trip for yourself in 2023?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I committed to that back in June, and it's now becoming a yearly thing at least. But I do take a lot of other, little trips to Tate Modern in London, to just kind of go on a date with myself. Reminds me of the artists. What's that book called? Julia Cameron, The Artist's Way, where she recommends that we take a date with ourselves, every once in a while on a regular basis, to just do something that is completely purely for us and not for anyone else. So yeah,
I love it.
Something you can take away into 2023.
Yes, hashtag me now and treat yourself to a day. That's fantastic. We almost at the time together. I just want to make sure, do you have any final things that you want to share? Don't get me wrong, this entire 30 minutes have been priceless and packed with amazing tips.
Well, I had a quote that I could share.
There we go.
And a recommendation for a book, if you need a holiday read and haven't read Glennon Doyle's Untamed. It's all about empowerment and all about prioritizing ourselves and putting ourselves in the moment, me now, not me first. But I really love this quote, which reads, we do not honor our bodies, curiosity, hunger, judgment, experience, or ambition. Instead, we lock away our true selves. Women who are best at this disappearing act earn the highest praise. She's so selfless. Can you imagine? The epitome of womanhood is to lose one's self completely. That is the end goal of every patriarchal culture, because a very effective way to control women is to convince women to control themselves. And with that, I rest my case. So really, putting ourselves first is a gender bias issue as well, and the gender equity issue as well.
All right, hashtag me now. I think this is how we're going to finish this. Thank you so much, Christina, for coming.
You're
It was a pleasure
welcome.
to have you.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Anyone watching this, thank you so much for being with us. Any questions that you have, any thoughts that you want to share, any comments you have, you know where to find us. Thank you for being here with us.
Bye.